Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you holding the hearing today on this topic, and I do have great empathy for what children and teenagers are going through these days with the inundation that they get over social media and other platforms that affect their mental health, their well-being, their ability to make judgments. And I also know that there are a lot of things that the government does to protect children in law, from everything from smoking to alcohol to gun purchases, all kinds of things. And so it's very appropriate that we talk about how we would help protect children from life-changing surgeries, particularly if they feel like they're not getting the right kind of information, and we also know that they're irreversible. And so, Ms. Cole, I want to thank you for being here today. I'm interested in, did you come to this conclusion on your own initially, or was it suggested to you?
Thank you for your question, Senator. I started puberty a little bit earlier. I was about 8 or 9. I was one of the first in my class to start developing breasts, and with that came a lot of attention on my body that I felt was very adult in nature for me being an elementary schooler at the time, and it was very uncomfortable. I just wanted to crawl out of my skin at times, and being a little bit more of a tomboyish girl, I liked having my hair shorter, I liked dressing like a boy. The person who I looked up to the most in my life was my oldest brother, and I modeled myself after him a lot. There were a lot of moments in my childhood when I thought, for different reasons, that I was more like the opposite sex. I just related to them a lot more. Sometimes with my bodily insecurities going through puberty so young, I thought, I'm never going to be pretty enough, and I'm not sure that I want to be either, because this attention that I'm getting so young that eventually materialized into an assault was far too much to me at the time.
Okay,
but I didn't believe that I was a boy until I learned about the idea of transgenderism through social media.
And where did you read through on social media?
Yes.
And do you feel like the information that you were getting were leading you towards a transition of your gender?
Yes. So what I was seeing in these online communities of other children who consider themselves to be the opposite sex, it was all very medically focused. Most of the discussion was oriented around the physical aspects of it. So before I even had a consultation, medicalization was already on my mind, because these ideas were going around that this was an inherent medical condition I had, that somehow on some level I was actually a young man and I would not be able to survive really without going through this. Even a lot of the artworks and these posts that these other children would make, they would glorify even the scars that would result from what they call top surgery, which is actually a double mastectomy.
And so, but I'm trying to, what was the moment? What was the moment that you and your parents decided that, gee, this is the right decision for our daughter?
Mom and Dad were actually trying to protect me from this. They had no problem with me dressing differently, but they knew I wasn't a boy. They knew that I wasn't transgender, and that this was something that very likely would pass over time. And even though I believed for years I was a boy, even though I went as far into this as I did, it turned out that that was true. This distress was something that was transient. I was going to grow out of it. But they only signed off on it when they were told that it was life or death for me.
So life or death, it was a life or death decision. Were you informed of the consequences, the long-term health consequences, and what that would mean for you? And do you believe that you were fully informed of all of those consequences?
I was not fully informed of all of them. In fact, most of the complications that I experienced to this day, from the joint pains, to the pelvic pains, to the PCOS-like symptoms, to my near lack of menses, and these other unexplained complications I've had over the years, most of them I had no idea were going to happen to me until they did.
And so, two quick things. What What would you suggest to parents and children who are going through these conversations right now?
I want every parent to know, every parent who is struggling with this with their child, that they don't have to say yes to this. Your two choices are not between picking up your child from the morgue or putting them down this lifelong path of medical experimentation. You can love your child the way that they were made. You can love your child for who they are and tell them the truth that no, you are not the opposite sex. You are not a transgender boy. You are not a transgender girl. But I love you as you are. I see how you feel. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, but I am not going to allow you to get into harm's way.
And then finally, if I could, Mr. Chairman, do you believe the federal government has the responsibility to protect children from these therapies and surgeries?
Absolutely. I think that whether you're a representative, whether you're an official in the government, as adults, we all have the responsibility to look after the children around us. That is our duty. And sometimes that involves saying no to a child's immature misgivings about their body, their confusion as they're going through this naturally very tumultuous time in their life. And that is part of our responsibility as adults, because children do not always know what is in their best interests. And the way that they feel about something, the way that they feel about themselves, their sense of identity, is something that is naturally fluid because they are not adults yet. And we cannot expect them to have the appropriate judgment to influence decisions like this.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.